Alright, I'm making this video out of frustration. I have the Tavern channel playing live in the background while I'm recording this, so I know I'm not the only one. And hopefully I can express some of what you all are feeling. I have around 2k hours in the game, and I came in around the end of Season 2, beginning of Season 3, so there's some background for my perspective and experience. I'm going to start with the good. When you play in higher gear score brackets and have some knowledge on how to build classes, the game has a fluidity to it like no other. The movement in the combat is unique solely to this game and is the reason I love it. There's also so much creativity in the builds you can make, from melee casters to tank rogues and everything in between. Arenas was also a great addition to help people learn PvP and get more confident in playing. And I think solo self-found arenas is a lot of fun too, and makes looting a lot more rewarding. Additionally, the introduction of the goldsmith made finding legendaries even with off rolls that much more rewarding. The unique arenas was a great time. I don't want to get into it too much right now, but I do believe there's a place for it as well. The game felt amazing and rewarding even to those without as much time to invest when the drop rates were buffed. I think Dark and Darker has a lot of potential. It's just a shame with the direction it's heading. With that being said, let's get into the bad. The learning curve is immense. The gear difference is even greater. When me and my friends started playing, it was early on, and I'm also the only one out of my real-life friend group that still plays it. I think this can be credited to the time it takes to learn the game mechanics, especially with how bad the game is in Squire gear and lower tier gear. This shouldn't be the case, and it's a big contribution as to why many players drop the game. I believe this is easily solved by raising the base stats and gear, somewhat in line with SDF's vision, although I think he missed the raising the stats part. I don't agree with losing random modifiers. I think the entire reason to play it is because of the gear, and without those the game loses its purpose. Another thing Dark and Darker lacks is points of interest around the map. We mainly have bosses, horde piles, gold chest, and I'd even count the sub-bosses as points of interest if the drop rates were buffed. I didn't even mention the key rooms because the drop rates are so low and keys are only used for holding value for RM tiers. Loot needs to be buffed, more POIs need to be introduced. Arenas was a great addition, but mobs need to be taken out. I feel like mobs are only in there for classes that benefit, like Warlock. If they're removed, then Warlock should just start with max shards. So PvP and balancing. I'm going to talk about classes specifically and what I do to balance them, and please don't flame me too hard for this part. Across the board, I'd either remove or reduce the amount of true damage in the game. If left in, I'd lower the amount of true damage on the Frost Amulet and Phoenix Choker. Where the game stands, those two necklaces, along with the necklace of peace, are the meta by a big margin. I'd either turn those into additional damage with the option for 1 true as a random modifier, or remove true. I'd make those into additional with the option for 1 true as a random modifier. I'd also remove the true off of the back slot, leaving only the hands for physical and the helmet for magic. I'd also leave the true on the jewelry though. The reason being, on the high end, there's too much DPSs on classes like Ranger and Rogue. So starting with Druid, I think if you have an instant animal form Druid, you shouldn't have the ability for spells. Those two Druid builds should be exclusive to each other. Obviously, new animal forms would need to be introduced. I'd also buff chicken healing to either 1/5 or 1/4 of max HP. For Barb, I'd lower either base HP or damage ceiling, and also give it bolo, which wouldn't be meant to do severe damage. I think Rangers would have damage lowered across the. I think Rangers should have damage lowered across the board. I think a good Ranger is meant to have an impact on the fight, but not be able to entirely stop barbs or fighters from pushing. Obviously, I'd also add a quiver. It's ridiculous, it's not even in the game. You shouldn't have an inventory full of arrows when the game is made for looting. Also, the removal of traps is necessary. Why the fuck are they even still in the game? For rogues, I'd raise their base Vig, give them the ability to use both crossbows, and maybe tune the DPS at higher gear scores. But lowering the true damage would do that already, so maybe it's not even necessary. Warlock, I'd allow to use the rapier or give them a weapon summoning spell. I think the main thing Warlock lacks right now is the ability to use melee. Wizard, I think the only thing Wizard really needs is the ability to meditate while moving, even if it would slow their move speed down. Fighter seems pretty balanced. Maybe take away the ability to do any magic damage from weapons that are not artifacts. So things like Demon's Glee, they wouldn't get the additional magic, along with like using any crystal balls, they wouldn't get any magic damage. I think clerics should either have their plate taken away or their base Vig lowered. If they're healing, they should be easier to kill, and their protection should be a priority for the teams that have them. Bard, I would allow to buff teammates with all songs. I'd take away the Survive Bow and the Lantern Shield parry. It does too much damage. I think Sork should have Electro Dash removed, or take away its ability to get to an elevated position. And I'd either nerf resourcefulness or lower their damage ceiling. And whenever I say like lower the damage ceiling, I'm just talking about like lowering it on the curve. Not give it a specific ceiling, but take away the power it can gain, like reduce it slightly, dropping it off. That's basically it for my ideas. I don't really think the game needs all that much, other than getting away from SDF's vision. I don't think my ideas are the greatest ever. Some of you may agree with some of them, but I know all of you would prefer them over the current state of the game. I know a lot of us love Dark and Darker and don't want to see it fail out of anything other than spite at this point. And I think the game can be fixed, but I don't see that as a possibility with SDF in charge. I don't think he needs to resign, but he definitely needs to take a step down. I think a lot of us had a natural state of progression in mind for the game, and I think SDF's vision seems to be the opposite of it. As of now, I've stopped playing the game, and I don't have any plans to continue playing it until it changes. Thanks for listening.